folks. Welcome to the Jeff and Axe Horror Show. I'm Jeff. Over there's my partner, Axe. How you doing, Axe?
Doing real good, Jeff.
All right, Axe. Well, as of this recording, it is the Halloween season. So it's only fitting, Axe, that we do a Halloween theme on the show this week. And we've decided to do, and obviously by the time this episode comes out, Halloween's going to be over, but Axe and I like to celebrate Halloween year-round, and that's what true horror fans do. But we've decided to do Halloween Party Week, Axe, and I'm pretty excited about these two films that we're going to review. And there's definitely some similarities between the two, but certainly some big differences too. And before we tell people what we're going to review, you got any big plans for Halloween, Axe? Or
I just went to the Witches Ball. It was my first time ever going to the Witches Ball. Went with my friend Amy, and that was fun. And that was like a masquerade ball. It's Devil's Night tonight. Tomorrow's Halloween, and I guess there's a cool party that I could go to, but I do have to work, so can't stay out too late. But I still do what I can.
For me, it's the Halloween season is a lot different than it used to be, but of course I still enjoy it. But not being in the haunted house industry anymore, I'm so used to working these nights and, working the day job and then going to the haunted house at night, but yeah, definitely my favorite time of the year for sure. It's unfortunate that it's all coming to an end, but that's how it goes. But anyways, back to our themes, Axe. Halloween Party Week, and the two films this week are from 1987, Night of the Demons, and from 2007, Murder Party. Two pretty interesting films, but we will start, of course, with 1987's Night of the Demons. Axe, this film is about these friends that they gather at this old funeral home, this old abandoned funeral home called the Hull House. And there's this party that's kind of being put on by this outcast Angela and her really, really strange friend Suzanne, who is played by the lovely Linnea Quigley. They're inviting all these people to this party, this Halloween party, and kind of weird shit just starts happening. And obviously there's a demon possession that's going on in this funeral home, and Angela is kind of the head culprit of this. I know I'm spoiling a lot of stuff early, folks, but if you haven't seen Night of the Demons by now, I mean, there's a lot to be said about this film, Max. But what do you really like most about Night of the Demons? This is a classic that both of us remember from our childhoods, and
it's one of my absolute most favorite practical effects makeups. I really feel like Steve Johnson set the bar for low-budget horror movies at the time. Before him, it was Tom Savini, but I really feel like Steve Johnson, was like the next one up. And then the other people at that time were, that were coming up, like the K&B guys and stuff, that were just starting out back then. But Steve Johnson, this makeup stands out among the crowd. When I was a kid, it was my favorite cardboard stand-up at the movie place. I was maybe 4 or 5, walking in the movie store, and there was Night of the Demons cardboard stand-up, and it had the red blinking eyes. It was very memorable. Definitely made an imprint on me as a young kid. As a movie, it's fun, it's quirky, it's got cool music in it. It's got all the punk rock shit that we've talked about before that we both like. Linnea Quigley and Steve Johnson kind of hooked up after this movie, and that's kind of interesting horror history. I have a lot to say about this movie, but yeah, definitely the demon, the face makeup. He really made one of the best horror villains, I think, of the 80s. Just like the thing says, Angela's having a party, Jason and Freddy are too scared to come, but you'll have a hell of a time. I think Angela as a character holds up with Freddy and Jason and those other characters that were big at the time. So, hail Steve Johnson, man.
Yeah. One thing about this film, Max, is, like you mentioned, is Angela, she is definitely a horror icon. And I don't want to get too much into the sequels of this film, but you cannot bring up this film without bringing up the sequels. And the second one, you and I both agree, Axe, is actually a pretty good film.
Fuck yeah.
The third one, not so much. However, the third one has a fantastic cover. And that is one thing that all three of these movies really, even the second one, has a pretty cool cover. But, the
1 and 3 definitely had the best.
Yes, definitely. And, the image of Angela on 3 with the blue drink and, the cocktail drink, and it's really, really cool. But
okay, I would like to mention in part 2, because I'm a huge Morbid Angel fan. And Morbid Angel being in Night of the Demons 2 is pretty fucking kick-ass, I must say. But go on.
Well, I mean, I was just saying, Max, that I was kind of reverting back to what you were saying about because you read the tagline of this film, and I think that when it comes to horror taglines, for all the ones that I've seen over the years, this is one that really sticks out to me. That it's a tagline that if you hear it once, you'll never forget it. You'll never forget, Jason and Freddy are too scared to come to the party, but it's just
Well, I don't know. I think a lot of the movies back then were ripping on that same shit. Like, if you remember Hellraiser, right? When Hellraiser came out, it said it made Freddy look like Rebecca from Sunnybrook Farm.
right.
So, the whole Freddy Jason thing was really being killed at that point, just killed to death. But yeah, I definitely remember the tagline from this movie for sure.
Right, it just kind of sticks with you, and I agree with you. That was definitely maybe a little oversaturated back then, because of the popularity and success of both, the Friday the 13th and the Nightmare on Elm Street franchises, of course. But there's a lot to say about this movie, and the best place to start is the cast. But before I get into the cast, I apologize, folks. I did it a couple weeks in a row, but I forgot to mention the director of this film. It's directed by Kevin Tenney, and he also directed a film called Witchboard. This is another film, Max, that's a very strange film, to say the least. It's definitely not as strong a film as Night of the Demons is by any stretch.
No.
But Kevin Tenney, he's got some credibility. I've only seen a couple of his films. I actually remembered another film of his that I saw. It's from 1996. It's called Pinocchio's Revenge.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a very, very cool,
he did that
obscure
one too,
movie. Yes.
Fuck yeah.
And I didn't even realize he did it, but I looked it up and I was like, man, I remember that movie so well. It was a great, great film. But
yeah, I really liked, because, this week we did kind of dive in and do kind of more research on what other movies the director did, and, Witchboard being his first, and then Night of the Demons being his second, right? And I really liked seeing how much he progressed from his first film to his second film. He really improved. You listen to him, and he gives a lot of credit to his photographer, but he really did improve from Witchboard to Night of the Demons. There's just a huge, huge step, like Witchboard is just, it's an alright first film, but Night of the Demons, in my opinion, is a classic 80s film. Witchboard can kind of be forgotten over the years, but Night of the Demons has already been remade. It's so good,
That's funny you say that, Ax, because that was going to be the next thing I was going to bring up. This is one of the 80s treasures that, obviously you and I both wish would have kind of stayed in the 80s, but we know how the whole remake game goes now, and
it's maybe one of the worst remakes.
I had a chance to see it, and it was pretty terrible. And
but back to Witchboard, I do love Tawny Kitaen in it.
Oh, absolutely.
She's really beautiful, and I do kind of like the Tata for now psychic lady. She always stuck with me as a character. So
yeah, absolutely. She's gorgeous in Tawny Kitaen, and I'm not really sure the year of the Whitesnake video, but I'm assuming it was kind of in sync with Night of the Demons, probably 86, 87.
Yeah, and along on that same line, so Night of the Demons comes out in 87, And like I'd mentioned, Steve Johnson, he also did a Nightmare on Elm Street 4 that we got to check out some of the making of on an old VHS that I have. So he worked with Howard Berger on Nightmare 4 doing, there's a giant Freddy at the end where the souls are coming out, and Linnea Quigley is actually one of them. So there's all these parallels between all these different people and the work that they did, and that's one of my favorite things about horror is how it's such a tight community and how the same people are used in different ways in different films. It's like a buddy system, It just shows that like-minded people get along, which says good things about the creative process, I think. But yeah, so, Steve Johnson already worked on Freddy. You know what I'm saying? So, then he does this. This is his first breakthrough solo film, with his own studio, and uses it in the tagline. So go figure, right?
The cast of this film of Night of the Demons Acts, is definitely a superb cast too. And for me personally, it was the character of Stooge. He was played by Hal Havens, and he was also in Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bolorama, which is another 80s cheese fest that a lot of diehard horror fans know of. And of course, Amelia Kincaid, who played Angela in these films, just did a tremendous job. It's a fun 80s movie that specifically around this time of year, I really enjoy watching this. And everybody knows that iconic scene with Linnea Quigley and the lipstick heart. And even if you're not a diehard horror fan, you know that scene, and it's
really good practical effect there, yeah, with the titty.
Yeah, the lipstick disappearing in the titty there. That's some pretty crazy stuff there, exactly.
I mean, there's so much to love. That's definitely one of the scenes that stick out. I guess maybe the demon dragon is, a little bit cheesy. But I don't know. I like the whole scene where the camera's eye is looking from the demon's perspective, and you're following up from the crematorium, and you're chasing through the house. And I like those sequences where you feel like you're going through the house really fast. Really helps with pace through the movie. I don't know. I kind of like they were talking about in the commentary how it was cheaper to hire minorities at the time. And so, you got a black guy, you got an Asian girl, so you had these minorities in the film, and they were both really great actors. The Asian girl, she was fucking hot, and the black guy, he ends up, living at the end. I think he survives, yeah.
Yeah, yep.
He survives, and it's cool that you got to see some faces that you wouldn't normally in a big budget movie, just because it worked out that way. And I don't know, it almost we were talking about the Power Rangers earlier. It kind of does remind me of the fucking Power Rangers, man, because you got the dude that's what was it, Bulk? Was that his name? Bulk
and Skull from the
Bulk and
Power
Skull.
Power Rangers.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah,
Bulk and Skull.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you got the Asian girl and the black guy. It's the fucking Power Rangers.
It is. It does. Yeah. It's funny. We were just talking about that before we started recording, and that obviously the one character there with Stooge he's definitely similar to that. But yeah. It's funny talking about Stooge. Axe. One of my favorite lines in the film actually is I can't really remember the context of it, but it's just so off the wall. And it's when they first get there, and nothing's really happened yet, and they're kind of getting the feel of the house. And Stooge says to somebody, eat a big bowl of fuck or something like that.
Yeah,
it's like.
He has cool one-liners.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Hal Havens is a pretty good actor, and he's able to really get those across. But, I think, like I said, I think Night of the Demons, this is a classic film This is a horror film that everybody should see. This is definitely one of those 80s treasures. You know, the diehard horror fans always talk about the 80s. They always talk about the 80s because that's when a lot of the best horror came out. And, you know, this was definitely no exception.
Yeah, so also I think one of the reasons this movie works so well is, I don't know when you were a kid, but when I was a kid, we played a game. It was a tag game. It was Ghost in the Graveyard, right? And whenever you played Ghost in the Graveyard or tag or whatever, you'd have a safe zone, right? You ever play it with a safe zone?
Yeah.
Where you had to get to the safe zone, you were all right?
Yep.
This movie is that, right? You cross the water, you cross the stream, and you're safe, right?
Yep.
And so it has this excitement of trying to get to the safe zone, like, you know, playing tag back when you were a kid. And I think that's what really drives this movie. It's actually kind of like a big game of tag.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. That's that's funny. I never looked at it that way. Definitely an interesting way of looking at it. But
yeah, it's not so much about killing the monster. It's about surviving and getting to the safe zone.
Exactly. You know, this is a classic film, and I think it's up there. You know, as far as the 80s films that the must see. You know, Jeff and Ack's Criterion collection of must see 80s films.
Yeah.
This is certainly in that category. So I'm gonna turn this over to you, Axe, and let you handle the ratings on this one, on 1987's Night of the Demons.
Well, it's a low budget movie, but it's a pivotal 80s movie, and so I'm gonna go with four blood drops. You know, we were talking, it gets kind of hard rating movies up in into the 5 era, you know, like 4.5, 5. It's like, it's got to be the best of the best. And is this movie the best of the best? No, it's not. But is it great? Yeah, it's fucking great. So I'm going with 4.
I think that's a fair rating, Axe. I'm inclined to agree. I'm gonna say 4 on this too. I mean, I would even say the special effects would be a 4. This is a great film, you know, from the 80s, and that it's a must watch for any fan of horror, whether you're casual, diehard, or whatever. So there you have it, 1987's Night of the Demons, directed by Kevin Tenney. Axe and I are agreeing, and we are going with 4 blood drops on Night of the Demons. So that brings us to our next film, Axe, and this one came out a long while later. Actually, in 2007, this one came out, so 20 years later. But this is you mentioned Kevin Tenney's first film, Witchboard. This film that we're about to review here was actually this director's debut also. And his name is Jeremy Saulnier. And this is the film Murder Party from 2007. And it kind of tells the story of this really weird guy named Chris. And he's kind of alone and not really knowing what to do. You can tell this guy's lived alone his whole fucking life. And he doesn't, really know what to do. And it's Halloween, and so he goes out and rents these horror movies, because that's what normal people do, and takes him back home. And he's got this weird cat that he talks to, and already you can just tell this guy's he's a strange bird. So he ends up getting this weird invite, Axe, to this party, and it doesn't say a whole lot. It just says you're invited to a murder party. And obviously the guy's not the brightest bulb in the box and thinks that, it's just another Halloween party. And so he ends up, which I think is going to be the focal point for a second. Axe, can we talk about this guy's homemade Halloween costume here? This box night that this guy comes up with, and it's fucking creative genius. Axe, you and I were just talking before the recording about one of the special features on there was on the DVD is to actually how to make your own cardboard box night. So, he comes up with this crazy costume, and it actually looks pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, the movie poster on this is actually pretty memorable too. I mean, I won't say it's as memorable as the last movie, but you might forget the title Murder Party, but remember the cover because it's pretty memorable. Right,
yeah, absolutely. You have Christopher on there with, his box night suit. He's just all goofy looking, he's this nerdy guy with glasses, and he's just a really strange guy, kind of an oddball for sure. And so he ends up going to this party, Axe, and these guests are not exactly who he thinks they are. And they kind of, at first he kind of is trying to blend in with the party, and, what did he bring to the party? He brought something to the party, Axe. What was the...
it was raisin kind of bread, like raisin bread.
Yeah, raisin bread or something. Yeah, I remember he had some kind of dessert or something. And the one guy with...
It was like he made a pumpkin roll and put raisins in it or some weird shit.
Wanting to fit in at the murder party, he he brings this fucking pumpkin roll with raisins, and... people that are throwing the murder party are kind of giving him these fucking weird looks, like, and the first thing, they're kind of saying is like, man, I cannot believe somebody actually showed up to this fucking thing, obviously old stupid Chris, was dumb enough to accept the invite, and, he gets to the party, and then he kind of notices that these people, they're acting a little strange, and they're kind of trying to warm up to him a little bit, and then they're just real direct. Actually, that's one thing about this film, is like, it's real direct. When Chris finally discovers what's going on at this party, and discovers that these people are actually, this is a murder party, and these people are actually trying to kill him. It's just so direct with it. And the one guy that is dressed up as the baseball fury there from the Warriors, because they're all asking, oh, what should we do with this guy? And I think we should just cut off his dick and
set him on fire. Yeah.
Set him on fire. It's just like, oh God.
This movie is fucking funny. That's what makes it work, is it's funny. My favorite scene in the whole movie is when they're all shooting up with the fucking truth serum, and one guy's like, one time I wrote a letter to Santa Claus asking to not be Jewish anymore. I thought that was pretty classic, but yeah, so all the crazy shit that happens, you got, for whatever reason, you got this guy that's faking to be this drug dealer slash, I don't know, he has grant money that he's gonna give out, and there's like this art clique that they're all trying to like fit in with, and anybody that's been around that kind of shit knows how fucked up all those people are, and how draining it is to try to fit in with these douchebags that aren't even what they say they are. And here's this nerdy dude, who's, you wouldn't think much of him, but he's actually the biggest badass of the bunch. I think that's what the movie's trying to say, underneath it all. Mm-hmm. The underdog story, and fuck the crowd, fuck the clique, fuck all that shit.
Yeah.
So I definitely resonate with the whole moral, underlying of the movie, but let's admit it, man. This guy should have fucking died just for eating candy corn, because that shit's fucking gross. And what the fuck, man?
Seriously, who the fuck eats candy corn, man? And that's like, yeah, like you see him just mowing the shit down.
Yeah.
And
should have died just for that.
Yeah, absolutely. He definitely should have. But Hex, I want to real quickly go back to the raisin bread real quick, because we forgot to mention that he ends up killing the one character because she's deathly allergic to raisins. Right. And that's kind of what sets off this kind of chain of crazy events. And
yeah, when she smacks her head, that's one of the better kill scenes in the movie. The whole blood pouring out of her head was pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it looked really fucking cool.
Yeah, and then you got the one dude that's in love with the fucking whore. You know, he's drinking himself to death, basically, and then he sets himself on fire, and then he's got this fucking werewolf mask melted to his face. That's really fucking awesome. Like, the effects in this movie are really good. You know, is the plot super tight? It's got its moments where maybe it might have been a little rushed, but overall, I thought the whole movie is pretty cohesive, and I like how, you know, you start from the beginning, you put the videotape in, and then you end, you're going back to the videotape again. I really like how the whole movie plays out that way.
Yeah, it really flows well. Murder Party is a movie, Axe, that really flows well. You know, there's plot holes in the script for sure, but it's not a movie that you're not. If you have to go up and take a piss or something during this film, you're not going to be lost onto what's going on.
Right.
Like, the same shit is still going to be going on, you know, and you're not going to. It's not that you're not going to miss much. It's just you're not going to, you know what I mean? You're not going to miss from the story.
You're not going to get confused.
Yeah, exactly. Axe, I really enjoyed this film. I had watched it a long time ago, I think when it first came out. And you and I were talking about that because you had said that you had possibly saw it back when it first came out.
Yep, I rented it once a long time, you know, back in 2007, 8-ish, you know, so.
But I don't think either one of us, you know, not speaking for you, Axe, of course, but I don't think either one of us really remembered a ton from it.
No, like I said, I really remembered the movie cover, but I couldn't really remember the movie very much.
Yeah. Exactly. So, and it was really refreshing to see it again. And I thought the guy that played Chris, his name actually is Chris Sharp. He plays Chris in the film. I thought he did a pretty good job. You know, the guy that catches on fire is probably the. I think he was the guy that played Bill. I think was the guy's name. William Lacey. Bill played Bill. Yeah. Bill played Bill, and Chris played Chris in this act, so they were...
Right.
And then, of course, the girl that played Lexi, Stacy Rock is her name, and she was pretty easy on the eyes, if I would say so myself, Axe. She was a pretty attractive young lady.
Did a lot of cocaine.
Yeah, yes. Absolutely. But you know, I was reading up on this film, Axe, and, you know, this being the directorial debut of Jeremy Saulnier, also a debut of a lot of these actors and actresses. And for, you know, this to be their on-screen, you know, debut, I think they did a pretty damn good job. Overall, you know, I think Murder Party, you know, it's not a film that's going to, you know, creep you out. It's not a film that's going to, you know, make you quiver. It's not that. This is just a flat out horror comedy. And
it's gory though, man. Like, it's pretty brutal there with the axe at the end with the everybody dies shit. It's fucking awesome. I like it.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely some moments that are cringeworthy, but don't come into this film like you're going to be just, you know, terrified and everything. You might be shocked. There might be some shock value there, for sure. There certainly is, like Axe said towards the end, but it's definitely kind of a simple story, but it's really executed well, you know, and the budget, you can tell, is pretty low. And it's just a fun movie. And another thing I wanted to say about this, Axe, is this movie actually received quite a bit of national exposure this past year or two. It was actually featured on Netflix. And for a film of this stature to be featured on Netflix, that's definitely saying something. For a directorial debut, like I said, you know, Jeremy Saulnier with a pretty good first effort. You know, if this was the first effort, certainly a good future. You know, and I know he has some other stuff out, but I haven't been able to track it down. You know, he's kind of underground. But I think this is his definitely his calling card right now. But that's kind of what I got on on Murder Party, Axe. It's fun, kind of raunchy horror comedy that, really doesn't pull any punches. As far as rating with this one, Axe, you and I talk about this all the time, how we try not to compare the films that we're reviewing. That being said, you can't compare Night of the Demons to Murder Party.
No, not at all.
They're two completely different films. Sure, they both have a Halloween party. That is really where the similarities stop, though.
Yeah.
I feel like Murder Party kind of follows I don't want to say cliche, because I don't think it's a cliche movie by any means, but it definitely follows more of an unoriginal plot line than Night of the Demons does.
Yep, I'll give you that for sure.
But you get what I'm saying, Axe. I'm not trying to take anything away from Murder Party. I'm just saying, comparing apples to oranges like we always do on this fucking show, it's definitely not. I don't even think it's in the same ballpark. But that being said, Axe, I'm going to say that I am going to give Murder Party a solid 3 blood drops.
Yeah, I mean, three's good. I mean, we could have went 2.5 with it, but I really felt like the comedy in it and, the whole flow of the movie really works well. I think it's worth watching. I was glad to go back and rewatch it again. I think it's, for 2007, it was probably one of the better movies of that era. So, yeah, I think 3's solid. We'll go with 3, man. But you're right. Like Night of the Demons, I'm partial to it, man. It's one of my favorite makeup effects. Murder Party had some great special effects in it, but it just doesn't compare to Steve Johnson. But 3 is good, man, because I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's got a real okay, I'll put it this way, all right? Murder Party is all about the clique, right? It's all about not trying to fit in with the clique. But at the same time, it's totally tapping into all of the cliques, all of the mainstream shit. It's sort of like it's making fun of itself. And so that's why I think it deserves the 3, because we could have went 2.5 with it because, like you said, comparing apples to oranges, it's not even in the same ballpark. But I really feel like it's got a lot of personality to it, so yeah, 3's good.
Yeah, it's a decent film. And, I'm glad we kind of stumbled upon this one. If people ever wonder how we pick out our themes on the show, well, we'll tell you. Axe and I kind of just bullshit, and we just kind of come up with our themes, what we're going to cover for the week. And this kind of, Axe came up with the idea to do Night of the Demons, and I said, well, I mean, there's this other film called Murder Party, and both of us kind of remembered seeing it back when it first came out. But good little pairing this week, Axe. I enjoyed covering these films, and did want to make a mention, because you did bring him up. Obviously he's not Steve Johnson, but of the special effects guy in Murder Party was Paul Goldblatt. He didn't do too bad of a job, especially with a couple of we mentioned the scene where, her head hits the floor, and there's some really cool effects in it, but of course not on the level of Steve Johnson. But we'll wrap things up here. Just to recap things, 1987's Night of the Demons, Axe and I both went with 4 blood drops on that one, and 2007's Murder Party, Night of the Demons, was directed by Kevin Tenney, and 2007's Murder Party, directed by Jeremy Saulnier. Axe and I went with 3 blood drops on that. So one of those rare occurrences where Axe and I agree on both films, but it happens, folks. So anyways, that being said, for the Jeff and Axe Horror Show, I'm Jeff.
I'm Axe.
And we will catch you next time.
Happy Halloween.